Coming up on OTH, Raymond and I discuss patch 12.5b with all of the adjustments to AD carries, fans returning for the LCS Playoffs, the first split of Champions Queue, and the winners of who came with that, and week 6 of the LCS. We hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Hunt. Welcome, everybody, to episode 48 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris, aka the Time Traveler, because I'll just be laying in bed on my phone for like 5 minutes, dude, and somehow 30 minutes goes by. I just do not understand how that happens.
Yeah, dude, so that's puzzling.
It's very unintentional. I've also, like, anytime I just lay down, like, I'm pretty sure time travels at like 3 times the speed in my bed. Maybe. So I think I have some sort of like spaceship bed, I think.
That could be it. Is it actually a spaceship bed or like a Lightning McQueen, like little cars
it's,
bed?
No, yeah, it's cars for sure.
Okay.
A little twin size bed. And joining me on this episode is our other co-host, Raymond. What's going on, man?
It's going good. Not a lot like really going on. Dude, I went to Universal Studios yesterday actually. I'm out in the world.
Can I ask, how much did that cost? Because I heard Disneyland is stupid expensive, and so I wonder if Universal Studios is just as expensive.
I'm pretty sure Universal's a little less than Disneyland. Let me see. Somebody else bought the tickets, and I had to Venmo them so I can check. It was like 100 something.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Well, not as bad, because I heard Disneyland tickets are just crazy in the hundreds of dollars per person, and so it is just like not possible to go there. And then also when you do go there, like Donald Duck and Goofy are very serious about you keeping your mask on.
I paid 104 for my ticket. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not bad, dude. How was it? Was it
it was
any
fun.
New stuff there?
I went there. It was the first time they've had like the Harry Potter Hogsmeade place. So that's kind of cool. But other than that, I think it's stuff that I've seen before.
I see.
I think I went there like for Halloween Horror Nights, like right before the year before COVID. So I figure they've just been kind of on hold since then.
Mm-hmm. Dang, I've actually never been to Universal Studios. I've only ever been to Disneyland and California Adventure one time, actually.
Really?
I was in ninth grade. Yep. Over 10 years ago now that I think about it. Yeah. And I went there for orchestra.
That makes sense.
Those are good times.
Yeah, those were the days. Wait, what'd you play in orchestra?
Played violin.
Okay, all right, I see you.
First class. Wait, not first class. First
chair?
First violin. No, not first chair.
Okay,
first violin, though.
First violin.
I think I was like 7th chair.
Oh, you had a lot of people.
Yeah, because well, first of all, there's like juniors and seniors ahead of me.
Right.
But then also there was like a couple of people who had taken private lessons. Those fucking tryhards.
Oh yeah, I don't know who would do that. That's crazy, bro. Yeah. I might have taken.
What about you?
Private lessons.
Were you a band guy?
Yeah, I played clarinet and sax.
Okay, I think you told me that before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is the sax hard to play?
The sax is just an easy clarinet. They make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
The buttons are easier to press. It's easier to play.
Is it more to blow? Or how does that
work? Not really. You can be louder on it, but like that's up to you. It's like about the same.
That's sweet, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and hop into some League of Legends here.
Heck yeah. We're past the musical portion of the show.
Yeah, and the traveling section as well. Time travel and real life travel, touching grass travel.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got an update to the previous patch, which happens pretty often, actually, but we usually don't cover it. But I'm kind of bored today, so let's go ahead and cover the mid-patch update for 12.5, which actually comes with a ton of champion adjustments. Let's see, 9 champion adjustments, and also a change, or 10, including Master Yi. And a change to Locket of the Iron Solari. So I think since there's not a lot here, let's go ahead and run through most of them. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think the first one that I kind of want to hit is the Jinx changes. They're reverting the mana cost scaling on her Q, and also lowering the range that it gives at early levels. I think this was probably the change that kind of pushed Jinx back into the meta originally, like a few months ago, was when they made it so her early rockets cost like a little bit less mana. And it's like when you look at the numbers now, it's like only one mana cost higher on each level, so it didn't sound like a lot, but it's like 20% overall, right? And she can kind of spam those out. So especially with presence of mind, I think uh, it was just kind of clear that Jinx could use rockets a little bit more often than she needed to in lane. So now she'll have a little bit more trouble keeping like constant push against people, being able to harass really easy, especially with like the range nerf, just like we saw probably with Gwen getting hit in the last couple of patches. So it'll be interesting to see if this pushes her out of the meta.
Ooh, out of the meta, I don't know about that, but
At least
we
lower
have been
down.
seeing
Maybe
a
not
whole
every
lot of
game.
her. Yeah, we have been seeing a whole lot of Jinx. All right, let's follow up with more of the AD carry stuff. I just realized a lot of these are for AD carries. Next up, let's talk about Zary, who is getting a bunch of more adjustments as well. Mostly, yeah, just mostly just nerfs across the board for pretty much every skill and even her base stats as well. So, base AD lowered, growth health. Actually, she has more there. Health growth, less armor, or less base armor. Base attack is
Less damage.
the damage is lowered.
Yeah.
Yep. So I had to like read all the numbers really quick. Q total damage increased. Looks like
Yeah.
E cooldown nerfed to 23 at all ranks. The damage through walls, I think. Wait, no,
The pierce
that's the
damage.
dash.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the piercing damage is lowered for the first couple of levels, and then on the ulti, it's just adjusted so you get more stacks for hitting champions initially when you first activate it, but less move speed per stack overall.
Yeah, so I think a lot of these nerfs are basically targeting. I think the way that August talked about it, the Zeri designer on Twitter, was that these are all supposed to kind of push her away from the Triforce build, like nerfing the base AD, buffing the like base damage that's on her Q is all supposed to like make it so Sheen procs are less effective on their own. And then the other stuff like the E change kind of incentivizes her to max that. For the damage portion of it, you do a little less just base on the piercing. So all that stuff kind of put together, and the less damage on your passive means that like you kind of have to build more damage if you want to deal damage rather than getting just like free stuff from Triforce and your passive auto that does max HP damage. So I don't know. We'll see. Like I feel like they've hit her with nurse in this direction like before, and people have still been like just set on the Triforce like Titanic Cleaver build. We'll see if this is like what finally puts the nail in the coffin on those builds, or if people still take a while to lag behind and change to crit builds, or what.
Yeah. Any other champions that you want to talk about? Actually, I want to talk about Ryze here because Ryze is another champion we've been seeing throughout pro play in this spring season, throughout the whole world actually. So another adjustment here is um, a buff to his passive actually.
Yeah,
Maximum mana increase 5 to 10% per 100 AP, but then his Q damage has been lowered
lowered on its base, but higher on
on
its
this.
AP ratio.
Oh, okay. Then
So
then
they're
this is
kind of
that was a non-story. My bad.
yeah. It's a little bit of a they're trying to nerf the tank build, right? Like just a little.
Yeah.
25 off his Q, which when it's empowered by E, I guess is like a decent like 50 damage off every Q proc, which when you don't build AP kind of adds up to a lot. I can see it.
Uh-huh. And then some of the other AD carries that were touched in this patch, or this little mini halfway patch, are Aphelios, Ashe, Draven, Lucian, and Varus. Any of those changes interest you?
Um, the I think the changes uh, are all pretty minor. The Phelios nerf is kind of nice to see, just hitting his durability. Similar to Jinx, we'll see how much that actually affects him. I think stuff like Ashe and Varus, like their buffs, might be kind of interesting. Like one champ that's notably not in this patch is Caitlyn, and if Jinx and Aphelios are getting nerfed, I think that'll still be pretty high priority on Caitlyn. Ashe and Varus have kind of always been a bit of a counter to Caitlyn just because your bully matters a little less because they're utility champs, and you got good ultis to catch Caitlyn out if she does try to bully you, and you can gank her. So I think we might go back to kind of trinity of those champs. Like Draven, that change isn't going to do anything. The Lucian buff might matter. I think we'll probably see people like either trying to play a mid or bring that back, or it'll just be more of like the Lucian Nami pairing showing up again.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's a big mix up in the bottom lane after this patch goes to like the pro play servers in the tournament realm. So I don't think that would be for a long time, I would suspect, but probably before like week 7 or week 8 is when we'll see the pros start playing on this adjusted patch. And then one last thing is they're making an adjustment to lock it. So the passive on it, the bonus armor and magic resist is going from 5 to 3, and then the active shield amount is getting lowered as well. I guess Locket has been a pretty strong item throughout this season so far.
Yeah, it is a little surprising. I feel like a lot of the talk I've seen around this is like people saying that enchanters are picking up the item when they don't need to. Like it's almost like it's like an indirect Renata nerf kind of that she's been going locket and having good what's the word, good success with it. So
Yeah.
I like it is kind of weird because it doesn't seem like locket users are the mainstay in the meta right now. And like you're seeing a lot more like enchanters like the Lulus and stuff, and then like always the Nautilus and Leonas that are building like even Shroud most of the time. So I don't know about this one personally because I do like Locket as an item, but I think people just like don't build it. I don't like. I'm surprised that it's finding its way into these patch notes.
For sure, for sure. And then they had like done some changes to Master Yi again that I kind of don't care about. But so on March 4th, they had made a bunch of more adjustments, actually reverting a lot of the damage on the Q and his E as well. And then they made even more adjustments to him on March 9th too. So they're really going back and forth with like adjusting his ulti cooldown and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess they're just trying to do big changes to his identity, and but also like probably putting a lot of attention onto him, surprisingly.
Yeah, I feel like it's this change. These changes have kind of gotten memed a lot of like they wanted to hit the lethality build, like it was a big problem in ARAM or something, but most of the time like win rates looked like the on hit builds and crit builds were still like the better way to play him anyway. So when they messed up with or they kind of messed with like the Q damage and that stuff to nerf lethality directly. But then they were like, oh, well, if we nerf this, we probably have to buff on hit. And that was like already kind of fine. So it just like, I don't know, they've had to scramble a little bit to correct the changes. But yeah, I mean, I haven't played against Master Yi, so it's not like I've noticed one way or another how important it is.
Yeah. All right, so let's get moving on to some good news that came out today, actually, which is that LCS fans are going to be able to attend games in the studio, or actually, I don't know if it's in the studio. I think it said something about it taking place in like the NRG Stadium or something like that.
I think that's just for finals in Houston.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so fans will be able to see the games in person starting in playoffs. And then next Thursday is when tickets are going to go on sale again. And I've never been to LCS, dude. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah? You want to go?
Never, ever.
For playoffs?
I mean, depends on who's in playoffs. Or depends on what games, I guess.
Yeah.
But it could be a good time. We can go get some donger dogs.
Donger dogs, baby. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I've been a few times to the studio for just like normal LCS games. I think I went to like one of the Gauntlet games back in the day too, for Worlds qualification. But yeah, it's a decent time. The studio's like it's a nice vibe. Fun to see games in person, especially if you haven't before.
Yeah. And then we usually don't talk about this, but I will say that in the article about the fans being able to attend the games again, it says right at the bottom, masks are mandatory inside. And so I guess that just kind of shows the state that like LA is still in, or possibly just how serious Riot kind of treats that sort of thing. Of they want to show this outward perception that they care, I guess, but then at the same time, but they want to make money from ticket sales, which is not that much. I heard they're only like $20 each
Yeah.
per ticket. But then I'm sure you get there and you buy merchandise, and then you buy overpriced donger dogs. So
Yeah, I don't know. This would like honestly, LA is like a lot more lax on stuff right now. Like this, like last week or two, they've changed a lot of the mandates from like enforcing masks everywhere and inside everywhere. So like I think now it's like optional for businesses, like even for employees and stuff to wear masks. So this is definitely more like Riot is just like I don't know. I kind of make sense with like something like playoffs where people might come and like travel to visit rather than it just being like a normal store or whatever. I can see
oh sure.
how having like a stricter policy indoors is makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also just especially considering these people are going to be in the same vicinity as the talent. And
Right.
by the talent, I mean the players.
Yeah, and like
But I
20 feet
also
away.
guess that, I also guess the broadcast people as well. So I suppose that makes sense. But just something interesting that I thought I caught at the end of that article. But pretty exciting to see that people are going to start to see crowds again, because it has been 2 years since the LCS studio at least has had any crowds.
Yeah.
And I saw a tweet today from Azale who was saying that like, dude, even Jose Dioto has never seen a fan in like LCS,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they just didn't, ever since he started playing here, we haven't done that.
yeah. Like I mean, yeah, think about it like 2 years of like any players that have been new over the last 2 years are, no fan players. Even like fucking tactical, right? Like somebody who's like feels like a LCS mainstay almost at this point. He
Oh,
started
that yeah,
summer
that's actually
2020,
probably
right?
the best example. Yeah,
Yeah. So like
crazy.
yeah, a lot going on kind of.
But yeah, that will be exciting to have people be able to experience that again.
Yeah. Big agree.
Moving right along, we've got the champion queue for the first split has ended, and we have like the top 10 people who finished out the first split of champions queue. So in first place we have Jojo from Evil Geniuses. Second place we have Ole, who apparently he was like fighting Jojo for the first place spot on like in like the last 24 hours leading up to it.
Yeah, I think they
Third
were pretty
place,
close. Like yeah, like you said, fighting for it.
and then in third place we have someone named Kaori, and I will look up who they are. They
He's
are
the EG Academy ADC.
EG Academy. Okay. And then also in fourth place is another person from EG, I believe, Surdy,
He's a
is
top
how I'm
laner.
going to say their name. Is
You
it
got
also
it.
Academy?
Yeah, Academy top laner.
Sweet. Then in fifth place we have another Academy player in C9 Sven. Sixth place is RGS, former mid laner for CLG. I heard that I was listening to a podcast. I believe it was Jat's thing, and I
Mhm.
think he was saying that RJS has like the most amount of games of like everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like the most unemployed, right? So it kind of makes sense. Like,
True. Okay. Then in seventh place we have somebody who I believe is from one of the Latin America teams.
yeah,
But I'm not familiar with this person. Mia LOL 98. Then in eighth place we have Armeo, formerly known as Grigny, the jungler.
for
Ninth
TL
place we
Academy.
have Yepers. Does he still play for TL? I don't.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. And then ninth place we have Kumo, the top laner, and 10th place we have Dokla, also a top laner. And then, do you know the pricing support for the all of these different placements? Because to my understanding, 12th place, our first place got some ridiculous amount, like 12 grand or something like that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. It's 12 grand for JoJo. Let's see. find it. Yeah, 12 grand for JoJo, 8 grand for Ole in second place. The next three through five, got 4 grand each, and then 6 through 10 got $1,600.
That's pretty crazy, actually. So for first place, it's actually kind of worth it to get first place, in my opinion. Like 12 grand is
Yeah,
not like brush aside money, in my opinion.
yeah, and then even then, right? Like it's a bigger prize pool for the like total season, right? So these guys get points that go towards like the end of year grand prize kind of thing. So definitely nothing to scoff at for these players.
Yeah, pretty sick. So, um, any comments for these 10 players who have finished out the first split of Champions Queue? Did were you watching any of them as they first played it out or anything?
I think I've seen probably the most of like some Ole games. I don't know nothing like in particular. I think shout outs to like Sven who's up on here. Being a guy who's like not really in the LCS, kind of still on that like C9
Lol.
practice squad.
Yeah.
So good for him to make a little extra cash on. Like I don't know what that means in terms of your contract. It's like you literally don't play games, but we still pay you. So cool for Sven. Pretty interesting. I feel like to see EG players in like three of the top four spots there. Kind of I wonder if that's like just EG as an org, really incentivizing like the Champions Queue and like that kind of practice, or just the way it shook out on who ended up there. And yeah, Ole popping back to the top. I feel like I remember Ole when he was, when Immortals was super good and he was on that team, and the humble, diligent grind in solo queue. He was always a fucking grind lord. So cool to see him in the Champions Queue as well, performing.
For sure. I also heard that some people are starting to not like Champions Queue because of the matchmaking that goes on there, which, according to what I heard on Summoning Insight, where Revenge was on there just this past week, he was saying that there is no matchmaking. Like um, there's no MMR or anything. You just gain points for winning, lose points for losing, but there's no like every time that you queue up, you get random people. It's randomized with who ends up on whose team. So sometimes you can get a lower ranked person match with Han Sama, and that bottom lane is just unwinnable because the support is not good enough,
Yeah.
and which has apparently been up for contention lately. Um, but I also heard that they're hoping to fix that in like the later editions of Champions Queue, and also right now like there still is Champions Queue. There's just no rankings for like a week, I believe.
Yeah, I think
So
yeah, I think you're right on that last point for sure.
okay, so just an interesting start to Champions Queue so far. I'm kind of glad that they cut it off here, and then we'll see. They're gonna keep doing like different splits instead of having it for like the whole spring split or the whole LCS year. So I think that this is pretty fine for them to call it here, give out some pricing, and then show people that like they're pretty serious about maintaining this. And I hope that there are improvements to the system as well, so that the players can continue to enjoy it.
Yeah, I feel like that last point about the splits, like it feels like it's pretty short, right? Like I can imagine that as a very good way for them to kind of like keep player retention going. Like having people still queue up for it, because it does seem like if it was a normal like LCS, like the Champions Queue matched the normal season timings, like 90-day splits or whatever it is, like it would take fucking forever for people to just amass like these little points. But yeah, I don't know. The other stuff, I don't know. What do you think about the matchmaking stuff? I mean, obviously, like if they're planning on improving it, like and actually adding like some kind of rating, that seems like smart. But I think part of like what makes Champions Queue kind of cool is that since it's mostly, I mean, it's like mostly like legit pros, right? Um, I feel like you wouldn't be too worried about like super mismatches in a lot of scenarios. Like obviously, there's gonna be places where it's yeah Han Sama against like some amateur ADC who is not fucking Han Sama, but the same could happen like in the top lane and that kind of stuff too. So I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be too mad about it, but that's clearly me who's not someone that's actually playing the game.
Yeah, having just heard a bunch of like podcasts over the week, some people complain that like even Grandmaster is still too low for like to be paired with sometimes, and that it'll ruin your games if the Grandmaster person ends up on your team, and anybody can get Grandmaster, or these people who are on like top 16 amateur teams, like that's they're not getting paired with them as an LCS player. It's just like not productive sometimes. So I mean, there is some complaints. I would have thought that there was some sort of match ranking system, like why if it's known what rank they are in terms of like how many points that they have, then why isn't that the basis for matchmaking at least at a minimum?
Yeah, I
But
don't know. The points are kind of weird. Like though, like you said, it's I think it's like just like flat. It's +10 per win, -5 per loss. So it's like kind of just like a spam games. I don't like the
yeah,
rating as it is isn't like too easy to figure. And I think that makes sense too because it depends on what players play, right? Like if some players just don't play and then or like don't play as often as JoJo, who's gonna spam games, right? Like they're just gonna inherently be a lower elo, but that might not really be how it works. Like it's such a weird like small community that's playing that it's probably hard to find like true matchmaking rating kind of things.
for sure. All right, and then let's go ahead and jump into LCS Week 5, which is just back to two games on Saturday and Sunday. And there's not a whole lot of movement throughout the standings, but let's just go ahead and give an update on all of the ratings here. So at first place, we have Team Liquid and Cloud9 still there at 9 and 2, both having gone 2-0 this past weekend. Speaking of 2-0, we've got FlyQuest right behind them at solely at third place at 7 and 4. Following that up, we have 100 Thieves at 6 and 5. Then Dignitas and Evil Geniuses at 5 and 6 to round out our top 6 teams. Actually, no, Golden Guardians is in there too. Sorry, for 5 and 6. So that's top 7. And then Immortals is 8th place with 4 and 7. CLG with 3 and 8. And then lastly, TSM at 2 and 9. We're recording this on Thursday, a little later than usual, so a lot of the games are kind of behind me. But what do you think of this past weekend's games of LCS?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of similar about the games we've been behind us. I'm remembering like some of the TSM games. I feel like this was kind of the best weekend for TSM for a while, but like they're still 2-9. Um, they brought back Shenyi. They had it. Their first game was like close, and then they lost, and then the second game they won. So I don't know. Neither were like dominating, but losing to FlyQuest, who's like the third place team and apparently pretty good. Not like not a knockoff loss, right? And then the win over Golden Guardians when they were the ones who beat them in that like huge slobber knocker a few weeks ago. That's a good redemption win. But yeah, that, those are the ones that I like are really sticking out of my mind. I'm trying to look back here. I don't know. TL beating 100 Thieves. I think that was actually a pretty good game. That one I think was like I think that was another one where Bwipo like late picked like Gragas as a counter pick, and Someday was playing Tryndamere, and just like he kind of got shut down. Bwipo was making some more hero plays as Gragas as he seems to always do. Yeah, I don't know. A strong showing from TL. C9's still looking pretty fucking good. Berserker is pretty good. Sum is pretty good. Fudge is showing himself as a reliable mid laner as well. Whole team's fucking good, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And on the TL point, I do remember a game from Sunday when they played against Immortals, and it looked like it was starting to be a pretty strong start off for Team Liquid. But then at a certain point in the game, like suddenly, Revenge playing Graves ends up taking like the whole bottom side
Oh,
of
that's right.
Inhibitor,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
two and then the two Nexus turrets as well, and then like somebody recalls, and then he kills them too, and then he even gets away with all of it. And so it was a really crazy game where like Team Liquid has double that amount of kills, and like you would think they would have been running the game, but it was actually a pretty big nail biter of like I I would say for a portion of the game, Immortals was in control even with a significant less amount of gold to work with. So that one was a really interesting game of like oh, Team Liquid could still lose this actually.
Yeah.
And then there's some contention about like some things that Immortals did at the end where they kind of looked like they were just gonna go for the base rush when there were a couple of objectives up. So who knows what could have happened? It would have been really interesting if Immortals would have won that game, and a lot of people would have had a lot of respect for Immortals if they had managed to round that one out from a kind of a losing position from the start of the game. So I just thought that one was really fun and probably one of the only games that I remember from this past weekend.
Yeah, actually, I definitely agree with you. I kind of forgot about that one. The Shyvana pick from Whippo at this one was also
Oh
kind of an
yeah,
interesting one that like
it's super
it kind
weird.
of made sense. Like I don't know if you I think Revenge had an interview after with Travis about that game, about that pick, like kind of in particular. And he talked about it and was like it's kind of expected. I think it's sort of like Revenge was saying it makes sense. Like Graves doesn't really push a lot of people out of lane. Like I mean he pushed a lot of people out of lane, but there's not a lot of tanks that like can deal with him. And Shyvana's kind of one of those, and in this game it was like a tank build from Bwipo that, and he can contest the wave, and you deal magic damage, so it's like a lot better against Graves, who's like the armor stacker usually, right? Um, so
Yeah,
if you're just playing the scale, you kind of do get a free like late game Shyvana out of it, which is I don't know how good that is nowadays. Like we obviously haven't seen a lot of it otherwise, but people have been talking about it. I don't know this. I know the C9 guys make jokes about like Blabber wants to play Shyvana all the time, or Fudge or Summit, or like being like, no, I'm gonna play it first, or that kind of thing. So I wonder if we'll see more. Like it's an interesting counter pick for sure, but this was like a weird game kind of for it to play out.
yeah. Actually, to expand upon your point, also on Summoning Insight, Revenge was saying that like he thinks his team should have been able to punish the Shyvana pick more because after a certain point, I think he was kind of dicking on the Shyvana pick, and that was also the same game where Core JJ and Hansama do like this nasty level 1 kill on PoE in the mid lane at level
Yeah,
1 where
that was
like
gross.
they don't even go to bot lane. They just sat in mid the whole time and snuck up on him to kill him. And yeah, that probably had a huge influence on PoE being able to like leave his lane after that and explore any top lane dives for the first 10 minutes. Probably had a huge influence on how that could have gone for them.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a lot of what ifs kind of to figure out how to play that game better. Obviously, like especially when it comes down to something as close as Revenge was like 2v1ing and almost just took the base by himself. Like you feel like any little advantage would have won you the game. So I can see that nitpicky kind of stuff for that. But I don't know. It's always a little hard. Like I think even this game, I feel like at the beginning of the game too, like Blippo like kind of inted. I remember he like kind of failed a tower dive and got killed, and then
Oh yeah,
um like the jungler couldn't clean it up either. So it was just like I don't know. He Revenge got a little fed for free that he probably shouldn't have. So I don't know. A lot of different ways that that game could have gone with how close it was to a steal of a victory for Immortals.
for sure. Another game that I'm starting to remember now is Cloud9 versus Evil Geniuses, where like I tuned into that game and for some reason Inspired is playing Kha'Zix, which I would not expect to see in an LCS game. But that game was really fun back and forth for like the first 15 minutes because like Blabber was unstoppable on the volley bear, but then somehow EG always turn around and get a kill on a summit, like just over and over. And so for a bit, it kind of felt like okay, anything could still happen this game until after a certain point, like Blabber is just not dying on volley bear, and
Yeah.
then it's pretty clear that after a certain point they're going to win. And even like being 0-3 or oh, also yeah, just Impact versus Summit, Akali versus Gwen. But it's just it looked like they were having a ton of fun up there.
Yeah, that was a
And
super cool matchup. I feel like that was the first time that Summit has felt like super tested in the
uh huh.
LCS, Like a lot of the games with Summit, it's either like you don't notice anything crazy happening or like he's actually just popping off, right? But I've not seen Summit kind of like lose lane and like be big weak point for the team before until this game. Impact showing that he's still got it as well.
Yeah, and they were. It seemed like every time they got back to lane, they were just fighting over and over again, down to
Mhm.
like 30% HP, ulties up or not, no flash, both ignite teleport. Like they're going at it. So that was a pretty fun game to kind of watch until eventually Volibear is just diving every tower and not dying. So,
Yeah,
but pretty fun game. Pretty surprised to see Kha'Zix and Shyvana out of this week.
yeah, definitely an interesting week for the surprise picks. And now we're seeing more changes in the patch, so who knows? Who knows what the LCS will turn into in week 6?
Yep, but those are my highlight games for this past week of LCS. So, is there anything else from week 5 that you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I feel like I don't know. The weird stories are just like the people that are like still near the bottom of the table showing signs of light and then losing it right away. So I don't know. They're just down there. We'll try not to talk about them until they prove themselves again.
Yeah, for sure. Then let's move forward to next week's LCS games on Saturday, March 12th. I think a couple of interesting matchups that we have here are Evil Geniuses versus TL, and then also Golden Guardians versus 100 Thieves to see if, how are 100 Thieves faring at this time. I think if they're able to beat people just like pretty close to them in the standings, I'd be pretty interested to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you on both of those. I think like EG, they've kind of started to get their groove back. You know, the one loss preventing them from, like we were just saying, the one loss from away from being a 2-0 week is uh, that game against C9, and C9's obviously looking really good, but they also had signs of life in that one from Impact, showing himself as like a true carry threat. So I'll I'm interested to see if how that top matchup plays out, and specifically with Impact and Bwipo, and then just how like EG can stack up against the TL team as well.
Sweet. And then speaking of TL, on Sunday they get the coveted rematch versus Cloud9 as the first game of the day actually, which is pretty crazy because I thought I had saw a Reddit post the other day of like G2 has never ever played the first game um, uh, in the spring split of this year. And when you think about it, it's like, oh, that makes sense because people want to watch D2, so they place them in the middle of the day. So you're like, you have to watch the first couple of games, or maybe you'll stick around and watch the games after or something like that. So
I
if
I
you,
think it's Western bias. I think the LEC games, it's like the hype games are always at the end of the day, so that the people in NA can watch it, and then the hype games for NA are like try to be nears the beginning of the day, so that EU people can watch it after LEC.
ooh, that's a good point actually. I like your conspiracy better than mine, for sure. But yeah, so first game of the day, and probably a battle for first place coming off of this because this Saturday matchups are kind of for both of these teams. So Sunday matchups, we'll get to see who comes out of this weekend in first place with TL versus Cloud9. TL having won the first time around.
Yeah, that'll be definitely. I mean, they're both 9-2 right now. I feel like compared to compared to most teams like standard performance, these feel like the only teams that can actually like handle each other, like on a game to game basis. So definitely the front runners for like an LCS finals at this stage.
For sure. And then, honestly, a lot of these, I guess the only other game I would be interested in from Sunday would be 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest, our current third versus fourth place, to see, who's going to come out there. Both of those teams are not looking crazy impressive right now, but we'll see how they can turn out and see who can show some consistency throughout this weekend.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It feels like I'm always just looking at top lane matchups for some reason, but that one is kind of interesting between Kumo and Someday. It's not Kumo, but Fake God has been getting a lot of flack over at Dignitas. I felt like when they hit a bit of a skid, it was just like Fake God getting fucking rolled by the enemy top laner in every fucking
Yeah,
game. And Kumo's like a little bit at that level, but he's had a few pop off performances and then a few Smite top games that threw it away or threw off like perceptions of him. So again, the matchup against Someday, that'll be an interesting one for him as an individual. But yeah, I mean, FlyQuest looking really good as a team. 100 Thieves looking a little more shaky as a team. So We'll see how that one goes. I think the other one I'd throw into the ring for Sunday too is the Immortals Dig matchup. Kind of like the other end of that spectrum of like third, fourth is FlyQuest and Immortals Dig is like I don't know, technically like fifth and eighth, but they're one game apart in the standings. Immortals has shown a little bit better form recently. Dignitas has been a little shaky from their early season form. I think I I think Dignitas is the better team still, like even though they're just the one game ahead, but like that'll be interesting to see if how they play against each other.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, like, I'm kind of with you. It seems to be the large consensus is that sometimes Fake God is the reason that Dignitas loses. A bit of a top gap sometimes.
Yeah.
But then when they win, he does seem to have a strong impact on and influence on the game. So I think that the matchup between those two teams could be an interesting one to tune into. And then I think let's have some fun with this weekend. Let's look at both of TSM's matchups this weekend against Dignitas on Saturday and then Evo Geniuses on Sunday. So of these two matchups, which one would you think TSM is more likely to be able to win with the new roster of the Takeover mid Shinyi bottom?
Hmm. That's interesting. I think if I had to say more likely, I would probably say EG.
Oh, really? Okay.
I I think the one thing I've been really impressed with Dignitas so far this split has been like kind of the resurgence of Biofrost in the bot lane. And Bio and Neo are both like pretty aggressive laners. And like I don't know, even like I'm remembering Biofrost even when he was on CLG with Stixay, and they were like a really good, like always picked for lane, right? Like even now, like Dignitas is playing a lot of like the Caitlyn Lux stuff. And so I think that Dignitas would be like better equipped to go against like the Shen like laning style, and try and take them down. So like I mean it could easily flip the other way depending on like how early 2v2 goes, but I could see Dignitas playing better at like neutralizing that matchup, whereas like Danny and Vulcan have like kind of had a rougher time in lane so far this year. So I would say that's a strong point for TSM in the EG favor. And then Takeover against JoJo is probably going to be a similarly volatile matchup. So if Spica can like counter inspired or find a way to influence that lane, I could see that being a good avenue for TSM to take the win.
All right, interesting take. Yeah, you love to see where the hopes are for TSM, and we'll see if there's any room left there for them to have a 2-0 week in the last couple of weeks of the LCS. But we'll see if they catch any more wins as well.
True, true. There's still like 7 games left, right? So you just got to make up like 3 games on like Golden Guardians or something, and they could be in the playoffs.
Maybe,
Maybe,
maybe.
maybe.
I think mathematically, yeah, it's still possible. And we'll see where CLG ends up after this weekend as well, if they end up tied with TSM somehow.
True. I did feel kind of bad for CLG. I don't know. The Super Week seemed so good for them, and then last week they just lost both games.
Yeah. All right. That's it for LCS for both of us. I think one last thing that I want to talk about with you is, have you caught? Did you catch any of the two like double liftings that he did this past week? I think one of them he had like another episode of his thing with Meteos and Sneaky, and then he also did a thing with Skara on offline TV. Were you able to catch any of those two?
I've been meaning to listen to him. I think I listened to like the first 10 minutes of the Sneaky Meteos one when he did it live.
Oh, okay.
But it was like late at night or something, and like it's weird times that he records those. So like that was it for me. But I've been meaning to listen to the offline TV one too because it was like that's kind of an interesting environment I feel like for him to be in.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend both of them. And the Scar one obviously like is a bit of a different vibe. But they're mostly just talking about their lives as streamers and a little bit more about that insight into their new streaming lives and jobs now as well. Um, but definitely, both of them both definitely contain some good old like old school LCS stories. Looking back on the days of getting paid nothing or just being happy to play the game. Always talking about, can NA win worlds? What do you think? Do you still want to play? That kind of stuff. So I think definitely both are just kind of fun to listen to. And, if you're a fan of Doublelift, I think it's worth a listen to both of those, even though like they're both kind of long, but it just kind of flies by when you throw it on in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all we got for this week then.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm good too.
Oh, have you watched any like TSM Legends or anything ever since they've been struggling this year?
I've been watching them still. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like they've like not talked about a lot of stuff. It's been between like their director leaving and stuff too. It feels like they've just kind of been like, yeah, we're gonna throw together 10 minutes of game footage and stuff.
Okay,
And
yeah,
call it a day.
that makes sense. Yeah, I found myself listening to a whole bunch of LCS stuff lately. I've been listening to like JLXP sometimes twice a week, The Dive, both of Dom's things. So it's Face Check, and then also his other one with the same Dgon I think it's called The Jungle, and then also Summoning Insight. So yeah, I listened to like 5 or 6 different things like for the last couple of weeks, just because I just throw them on in the background while keep on grinding away on Lost Ark.
True.
So yeah, there's that. I'm pretty up to date with all the consensus on the team so far.
There you go. Yeah, I think I've probably fallen off the horse a little on the extra media stuff, but kind of catch some here and there.
All right, and that's going to be it for episode 48 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on the service that you're listening to us on, if you haven't already. We'd appreciate it if you also give us a rating or hit the like button to show some support. You can find us on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and so forth. And we'll see you all next week for another episode of On the Hunt.
Woo woo!